Imagine buying like 1/1000th of a commercial skyscraper in Tokyo,
Right.
but you're doing it instantly from your laptop in London. And meanwhile, the self-healing apartment complex you live in is just automatically renegotiating its own energy contract with the local grid.
It sounds like sci-fi, honestly.
It really does. But I mean, if you think the golden rule of property is still just, location, 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 you are playing a game that ended yesterday.
Yeah,
The
completely.
traditional playbook, like pouring concrete, signing these mountains of manual paperwork, and just statically waiting for property values to rise, that's dead.
It's dead.
We are actively witnessing a massive transformation. It's all driven by digital twins, blockchain liquidity, and net zero material science. And so today's deep dive is an absolute masterclass into exactly how this transformation is unfolding.
Yeah, we're being guided by a really phenomenal book.
Exactly. The Future of Real Estate. PropTech, Sustainability and Design by Willem Tait. Our mission for you today is very simple, right? By tuning into this conversation and exploring this book, you are going to gain a comprehensive, highly actionable blueprint to navigate the future of property.
You really will.
You're going to learn the exact tech and business strategies required to adapt right now, rather than being left holding on to, well, legacy assets. Think of it like the transition from the flip phone to the smartphone, but we're talking about upgrading entire cities.
It is a critical mission. And to fully grasp the gravity of the strategies we're going to cover today, we really have to look at the mind guiding us through them.
Right.
Willem Tait is not just observing this market from the sidelines. I mean, he is a highly established author, a consultant, a mentor, a coach, and a really sought-after public speaker.
He wears a lot of hats.
He does. And what makes his perspective so valuable is his ability to synthesize multiple disciplines. When you look at his portfolio of books, you're seeing someone who masters the hard mechanics of the industry with titles like Real Estate Law Essentials and Economics of Banking and Money.
All the really technical stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he also understands the human psychology of business, which you see in his no-nonsense self-help books like Sort Your Crap Out.
Well, that title.
Right. He understands that to build a better future in real estate, you fundamentally have to build better, more informed decision makers.
Which is exactly why we're so excited to bring his work to you. And the best part is that Tait's insights are incredibly accessible. His books are available worldwide right now at all the major retailers.
Yeah, everywhere.
You can find them on Amazon, Apple Books, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Bowl.com, and Waterstones. So regardless of where you are tuning in from, you can get your hands on this blueprint immediately.
And I want to add a highly strategic tip here for you. If you don't want to buy the book right away, just ask your local librarian for it.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, his work is readily available on library apps like Overdrive, Libby, Hoopla, or Obulo. That means you might be able to dive into this exact knowledge completely for free.
Right from your phone.
Exactly. It's a brilliant, frictionless way to begin your reading journey into his strategies.
Absolutely leverage your local library. So, diving right into the core architecture of this book, Tait writes that the foundation of this new era rests on a very specific trifecta.
Right, the 3 pillars.
Yeah, PropTech, sustainability, and design. And I want to start with the digital foundation. In this book, Tait traces the evolution of the Internet of Things IoT from its absolute infancy, like, remote-controlled garage door.
The basics, yeah.
Right, to the hyper-complex building management systems, or BMS, that dominate prime commercial spaces today.
Exactly. And his writing reflects that technology is no longer just a luxury overlay, right? It is the fundamental infrastructure. A modern BMS doesn't just run on a timer anymore.
Right. It's way smarter than that.
Way smarter. It uses these advanced sensory networks to autonomously adjust lighting, security, and climate based on real-time occupancy and, thermal dynamics.
I hear that, but, okay, putting my investor hat on, my immediate thought is vulnerability.
Sure.
If I'm wiring a 40-story high-rise to the internet, aren't I just creating a massive cybersecurity nightmare?
It's a valid concern.
And beyond the threat of a hack, aren't we just adding thousands of complex sensors that are inevitably going to break and cause massive operational headaches?
That is the exact friction point developers face. But Tait's approach to this is very grounded. In his book, he emphasizes that you cannot have PropTech without military-grade cybersecurity.
It's plugged in.
Exactly. Strong encryption and AI-powered threat detection are just non-negotiable baselines. But to address your point about operational headaches and things breaking, he points to the true innovation here, which is digital twins.
Okay, I've heard this term.
Yeah, so a digital twin doesn't just show a 3D model of your building on a monitor. It feeds live telemetry data directly into an AI.
Wait, give me an example of what that actually looks like in practice.
Okay, think about the micro vibrations of an HVAC fan belt on the roof of a commercial tower.
All right.
The digital twin tracks those vibrations in real time. The AI runs thousands of physics simulations against that data and flags that the belt is going to snap in exactly 12 days.
Wow. 12 days before it even happens.
Right. So it alerts the building manager, allowing them to replace a $50 part on a Tuesday afternoon rather than waiting for it to fail on a Friday night.
Which would trigger a massive system outage.
Thousands in emergency repair costs, furious tenants, you name it. The building is essentially diagnosing its own technical health proactively.
That makes total sense. I mean, predictive maintenance saves millions. But those operational savings mean absolutely nothing if you're bleeding capital on the other end of the business.
Oh, you mean the closing process?
Specifically, the slow, paper-heavy closing process. That's where the transaction side is being forced to evolve. And Tait's exploration of immersive tech and decentralized finance is just fascinating.
It is a massive paradigm shift because, I mean, before you even get to the transaction, how do you market a building that doesn't actually exist yet?
Right.
In his book, Tait explains that virtual reality and augmented reality are moving way beyond just letting a buyer look at a digital floor plan. Developers are utilizing VR heat mapping now.
Heat mapping, like tracking where people look.
Exactly. They can track exactly where a potential buyer's eyes linger during a virtual walkthrough. This allows architects to optimize layouts, lighting, and sightlines for maximum psychological appeal before a single brick is even laid.
That is wild.
He also writes about utilizing gamification, like adding virtual treasure hunts to these property tours to deeply engage younger demographics and foreign investors.
Which brings us right back to that buyer in London buying a skyscraper in Tokyo from the intro.
Right.
Because once that VR tour convinces them, how does the capital actually move? Tait writes about the integration of blockchain and smart contracts, which basically act as self-executing digital agreements.
The mechanics of this completely remove the traditional bottlenecks. In this book, Tait argues that legacy intermediaries, like lawyers, banks, escrow agents, they're actively being engineered out of the transaction flow.
Because you just don't need them anymore.
Exactly. A smart contract sits on a decentralized, immutable ledger. When a specific condition is met, say, the cryptographic verification of funds, the ownership token automatically routes to the buyer's wallet.
So there is no escrow agent waiting for an ACH transfer to clear over a long holiday weekend.
None. Tait notes that this technology is cutting closing times from several weeks down to mere hours. It eliminates endless manual verifications.
And the mechanism driving this is what Tait refers to as tokenization. I mean, we all understand secondary market liquidity when it comes to stocks, right?
Sure, you buy a fractional share of a tech company.
Exactly, and you can sell it instantly. Tokenization brings that exact liquidity to real estate, which has historically been the most illiquid asset class in the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of needing $50 million of institutional capital to buy a commercial asset, tokenization democratizes it. You buy a fractional digital share, opening up the market to a massive pool of global retail investors.
It fundamentally changes who gets to participate in wealth generation, but, this naturally triggers the next critical question.
What's that?
Once that transaction clears instantly on the blockchain, what are we actually funding and building?
Ah, the physical asset.
Right. This is where Tait seamlessly transitions into the second pillar, sustainability.
Yeah.
Because the green imperative is no longer just an environmental talking point, it is a hard financial reality.
Right, and I want to challenge the standard narrative here for a second. I hear terms like net zero architecture and eco-innovation, and as a developer, my immediate thought is massive capital expenditure.
Of course, it's the number one worry.
If I have to use exotic materials and integrate complex rainwater harvesting systems into my core plumbing, that is going to blow up my upfront costs. How does Tait justify that initial financial hit?
It's the most common pushback in the industry, and Tait's financial argument in his book addresses it head-on by looking at the entire life cycle of the asset, not just the construction phase.
Okay, so looking at the long game.
Yeah. Yes, building a net zero structure, one that generates as much energy as it consumes, requires higher initial capex. But he clarifies that the long-term ROI is disproportionately higher.
How so?
First, your operating expenses plummet. Second, corporate tenants today are bound by strict ESG environmental, social, and governance mandates. They will actually pay a premium for compliant office space.
That makes sense.
And third, developers unlock access to highly favorable green loans with significantly lower interest rates.
Okay, so there's a massive carrot there. But Tate also points out there's a very heavy stick coming for those who don't adapt.
Exactly. He writes that zoning laws and municipal regulations are actively shifting. We're moving toward a reality where local governments heavily penalize outdated, carbon-heavy buildings.
Which is terrifying for legacy portfolios.
It is. In his book, he suggests that future zoning could even be algorithm-driven. Imagine a city grid where property taxes and zoning permissions are dynamically adjusted based on the real-time carbon output of your building relative to the rest of the block.
So if you are clinging to the old way of building, your property could literally become a stranded asset.
Literally.
Which is why his focus on material science is so vital. He points out that traditional concrete is a massive carbon emitter. So his writing reflects a shift toward materials like hempcrete.
Hempcrete is amazing.
It is. And what's wild about hempcrete isn't just that it's sustainable to grow, it actually continues to absorb carbon dioxide as it hardens. If you build a commercial complex out of hempcrete, you are essentially creating a massive artificial lung for the city.
It's brilliant.
He also details the use of graphene-reinforced concrete, which uses less overall volume while drastically increasing tensile strength.
And you see these concepts scaling up from individual buildings to entire megacities. In his book, Tait brings up Saudi Arabia's project, The Line, as a prime example of this evolution.
Oh, yeah, the linear city.
Right. It is a linear city designed completely without roads, relying strictly on high-speed subsurface transit and green infrastructure. It proves that to attract global talent and investment, municipal infrastructure has to be entirely reimagined for resilience.
But designing resilient cities and structures requires developers to completely abandon rigid, static planning. And this is where Tait applies the concept of design thinking to real estate.
Right, the third pillar.
The built environment shouldn't dictate how we work. It has to be hyper-adaptable to our changing behaviors.
His approach to design thinking is incredibly practical, too. In this book, he uses examples of dynamic spatial planning, like a corporate boardroom shouldn't just be a fixed room with a heavy oak table anymore.
Right.
It needs modular partitions and adaptable acoustic treatments, so it can be subdivided into 3 smaller collaborative workspaces in under 10 minutes.
Just constantly reconfiguring based on need.
Exactly. Or on a macro scale, he discusses how airports are utilizing those digital twins we talked about earlier to constantly optimize passenger flow. They can move security assets and adjust signage dynamically to eliminate bottlenecks. It's all about user-centric design that is constantly iterating.
And as these buildings become smarter, greener, and more adaptable, the macro financial landscape shifting around them is just as dramatic. I mean, investing is no longer a localized game.
Not at all.
Tait points out that professionals have to navigate global regulations and leverage public-private partnerships, PPPs, to fund these massive resilient developments. And to evaluate these cross-border deals, firms are utilizing AI-driven analytics to forecast market trends on a granular level.
The financial shift here is so profound that Tait makes a brilliant historical parallel. He compares the current technological disruption in real estate to the United States abandoning the gold standard in 1971.
Oh, the Nixon shock. We closed the gold window, moved to fiat currency, and suddenly real estate became the ultimate macro hedge against inflation. It completely altered global finance.
Are you saying Tait views PropTech as creating a similar systemic liquidity shock?
Precisely. When the rules of currency changed in '71, those who didn't understand fiat mechanics got crushed, while those who leveraged real estate as an inflation hedge built empires.
Wow.
Tait argues in his book that decentralized finance and tokenization are rewriting the rules of value and liquidity today in the exact same way. Real estate is transforming from a slow, illiquid mammoth into a highly liquid, fractionally traded global asset.
So if you don't understand these new financial mechanics, you will be left holding assets you fundamentally do not know how to leverage in the modern market.
You'll be playing by 71 rules in 2026.
Which perfectly sets up the final section of his work, where he looks even further over the horizon. Tait dedicates a significant portion of the book to forecasting the next decade, and the technological leaps he writes about are going to redefine our entire concept of geography.
Yeah, the transportation shift. Specifically, the rise of eVTOL's electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. basically autonomous air taxis.
It completely shatters our traditional understanding of urban sprawl.
Exactly. For a century, prime real estate was dictated by its proximity to a highway, a subway line, or a port. But if you have an air taxi that can bypass ground traffic entirely, suddenly a deeply secluded mountaintop or rural acreage 50 miles outside the city becomes highly accessible.
And therefore, highly valuable.
Right. It creates an entirely new frontier market for air rights. The airspace above a commercial property, which determines takeoff and landing logistics, becomes arguably more valuable than the actual ground it sits on.
It sounds like science fiction, but the capital flowing into eVTOL infrastructure right now is staggering.
It really is.
To help readers actually execute in this wild future, Tait concludes with a highly structured 12-strategy blueprint. He details the core tenets that developers and investors must integrate immediately, focusing heavily on vision, fostering innovation, leveraging data, and proactively navigating shifting regulations. He provides a step-by-step guide to future-proofing an enterprise.
And within that 12-step blueprint, there is one takeaway that I found incredibly profound for you listening. Despite all the intense focus throughout the book on artificial intelligence, blockchain, and smart cities, Tait's blueprint ultimately heavily emphasizes talent. The key to navigating the future isn't just raising capital to buy the most expensive software. It's about aggressively training, upskilling, and retaining the human professionals who actually wield that technology.
That is so important.
Right. And AI can flag a failing HVAC bell, sure, but it takes human ingenuity and strategic negotiation to navigate edge cases, build community relations, and design spaces that people actually want to inhabit.
That is the ultimate differentiator. Technology is a force multiplier, but it is entirely dependent on the quality of the human minds directing it.
Exactly.
And as we synthesize Tait's extensive insights today, I want to leave you with one final, lingering strategic question based on his forecasts.
Let's hear it.
If autonomous air taxis and drone logistics networks render our traditional, gridlocked road infrastructure completely obsolete over the next 2 decades, how much of your city's currently prime real estate will suddenly lose its massive premium simply because physical proximity to a highway no longer dictates value?
Oh, wow. That is a staggering variable to model into any long-term portfolio. The old rule of location, location, location is being redefined in 3 dimensions.
It really is.
If you want to explore the answer to that question and truly understand the mechanisms driving this industry forward, you need to read The Future of Real Estate, PropTech, Sustainability and Design by Willem Tait. As a reminder, it is available worldwide right now at Amazon, Apple Books, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Bowl.com, and Waterstones.
And please, utilize that library strategy we discussed. Check the Overdrive, Libby, Hoopla, or Odilo apps to see if your local library has it available for free.
Such a great resource.
It is. And if you are ready to start your professional journey with Willem as a coach, a mentor, or a speaker to help your organization navigate these massive industry shifts, be sure to check the links in the bio. The absolute best way to see all his professional options, as well as his academic research on academia.edu, is via his Linktree.
Definitely check that out.
Connect with him on his social channels, and make sure to read more of his ongoing in-depth strategic insights on medium.com and substack.com.
The resources are all there for you. Go buy the book, dive into the material, and make sure you follow this deep dive feed. We are incredibly excited to bring you the next episodes reviewing the rest of the Willem Tait portfolio of books.
It's going to be great.
He has a massive wealth of knowledge, and we look forward to many more deep dives hereafter exploring his extensive, game-changing work. Until then, remember, the built environment is upgrading. Make sure your strategy upgrades with it.